This is classic yellow cake with chocolate buttercream. Today on Chocolate Avenue Baking Company. Okay, so to get started here, we're going to sift together all of these dry ingredients first. And as I said, all of the weights and measures are going to be down in the description box, so you can make this exact yellow cake if you want. So, all-purpose flour and the cornstarch going in there. Granulated sugar, baking powder, baking soda, and fine sea salt. So just sift those together, and then we're going to whisk it a little bit as well to combine. So then after you have all of your dry ingredients sifted, just take a whisk and make sure everything is evenly distributed and aerated. So just set that to the side. So the next step is simply to whisk up all of your wet ingredients into a separate bowl. So in go the 8 room temperature egg yolks, the melted coconut oil, and the melted and cold unsalted butter. And then you can go ahead and start adding in your buttermilk. As always, make sure you're scraping all of your bowls and measuring cups so you're getting accurate measurements. Then just 1 tablespoon of my vanilla extract. Okay, so at this point you should have your oven preheated to about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Make sure that your oven is up to temperature before you put your cakes in. And now what I'm going to do here is simply sift in the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients. So I'm just going to do it a little bit at a time here. Make sure everything is completely combined. So maybe about 4 installments or so. So just take your time with it so you have less lumps in your batter. So as you can see, the cake batter will be quite thick at this point. So after you have that completely smooth and most of the lumps worked out there, just put that to the side, and now we're going to finish this meringue here. So I've just started my meringue to a very soft peak here by hand with the whisk, and now we're going to finish this with the stand mixer and gradually pour in the granulated sugar. And at this point I'm also going to put in my cream of tartar. stiff but not dry. Nice and glossy. That's about where you want this. So now it's just a simple matter of incorporating this meringue into the rather stiff cake batter. And the first thing I'm going to do here is just take about a third of this meringue and just lighten this. And you don't have to be too fussy with this because you're just trying to lighten this cake batter. So you can be a little rougher with this first installment. So then you'll see now that most of the white streaks are gone, and we're going to put another third into this. And now I'm going to start to fold this using a technique where I'm cutting down through the center, going around the sides, cutting up through. If you're newer to baking, this is just a technique where you're trying to keep as much of the foam, the air bubbles inside the meringue, and not trying to just stir this together and deflate all of those beautiful air bubbles in the meringue. So that's the motion there. So now I'm going to put the rest of the meringue in here and just finish this off. So with the third installment, you want to be a little more gentle with it. Try to keep as much of that foam intact as you can, but just make sure that you're still incorporating as much of that white into the batter as you can. So you shouldn't see a lot of white streaks left. A little bit's not going to make that big of a difference, but try to incorporate it so that all of the batter is getting lightened. So there we have it. That's a nice lightened, foamy yellow cake batter. Okay, so I would say that definitely for best results, you should be weighing out this batter into your pans. So then as soon as you have everything weighed out, just take an offset spatula here and smooth out the top. Just be very careful not to knock all of those air bubbles out, and then straight into the oven for somewhere around 20 to 25 minutes, and we'll check them. So I have our cakes here completely cool, and I pulled them out right around 22-23 minutes, but keep a close eye on them. Let them cool completely on a cooling screen or your countertop. And once they're cool, then you can go ahead and mix up your buttercream for this. So what if I was to tell you that there's a classic buttercream out there based on pastry cream, and it's called German buttercream. It doesn't get a lot of love. You don't hear about it a whole lot, but I'm going to show you how to make this. So what I have here is 1.5 pounds, or what I call the small batch of the pastry cream. And you're also going to need, this is a chocolate German buttercream, so you'll also need a 1 ounce of I have some organic baking cocoa. It's not Dutch processed. It's just natural baking cocoa. and 6 ounces of confectioner sugar. And so to start this recipe, I'm just going to sift the confectioner sugar and the cocoa straight into my stand mixer bowl here. So the next thing we're going to do with this is I'm going to work in 1.5 pounds of excellent unsalted butter. Also to that, at the end, I'm going to use this is melted cold. I'm using Calabo 811. This is just a really good medium dark grade. I think it's 55% or so. So not super dark and definitely not super sweet. This is actually really more like a semi-sweet chocolate. So just make sure, just melt that out and have that cooled down, but make sure there's no lumps in it. Now that I have the confectioner sugar and the cocoa sifted in there, I'm going to bring you over so you can kind of see how I put this together. Okay, so the first thing you want to make sure is that your butter is absolutely room temperature, and we're just going to first put all this butter right in here to the confectioner sugar and the cocoa. Then just fit your stand mixer with the paddle attachment, and we're just going to cream this butter and sugar and cocoa together. Start out nice and slow so you don't get it all over your face. Okay, so then as soon as your butter and confectioner sugar and the cocoa is all nicely creamed together, and it should lighten in color a little bit, so then next you're going to start to incorporate this beautiful pastry cream in there, and you're just going to want to go slow, just a nice dollop at a time until it's all well combined. And then we'll incorporate the melted cold chocolate into it as well. Just keep it on medium speed. Okay, so then once you have all of your pastry cream incorporated into the buttercream, now it's time to add the melted cold chocolate. So the big thing about adding the chocolate into the buttercream is just make sure it's not too hot. Make sure that it's pretty well cooled off, but there's still not any chunks of unmelted chocolate in there that could break off and form lumps in your buttercream, especially if you're going to pipe it. So just with your mixer on low, just go ahead and start to add that in there. So there you go. Once you get your melted cold chocolate incorporated in there, then I'm just going to give this a little, maybe teaspoon of vanilla paste in there. There you go. It's nice and stable and soft as it should be. That's what you want. Light but spreadable. And now we're going to frost this cake. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and give this layer cake a crumb coat, and that's the first step. Whenever you're frosting cakes, it's definitely best to try to work as clean as possible. It's good to have some hot water to the side that you can dip your offset spatula into, work nice and clean, and just wipe off as you go. As always, I have the standard setup with the cake board down here on the turntable, and also some parchment strips along the side. So I just put a little bit of So you want to try to get a fairly smooth finish on your crumb coat. Doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to get the top coat, but just seal up all the cracks and then refrigerate this for about a half an hour. Okay, so as soon as your crumb coat is set, then put the cake back here on the turntable. So now we're just going to finish this cake. I always start out on the top and give the top of the cake more than it looks like it needs, and then just start pushing all of that frosting over the side by moving the turntable. You're just taking the tip of your palette knife and carefully place it into the buttercream on the base and just swipe up the whole way around. And then to finish it, I'm just going to take like a tablespoon here and just give it swirls, just like that. Alright, so now it's time to try this absolutely adorable cake. I think it looks amazing, and the smell, I mean, what can you say? It's a classic for a reason, right? So let's just give this a try. Wow. It's a really delicious yellow cake flavor. It has the moistness of a chiffon, but yet enough butter in it to give it that classic butter cake taste. And of course the chocolate German buttercream is a standout. I think it's definitely one of the most delicious buttercreams out there. So I hope that you will give this a try. It's a really delicious cake. I think it has a classic beauty all of its own. And let me know what you think. If you try it, leave me a comment down in the comments, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for joining me.